Welcome to Business Fusion at the Business Centre. My name's Ben Price. I'm a business advisor and trainer at the Business Centre. Tonight we're going to be having a conversation about culture with our panellist, David Reid. And we'll talk to David a bit later on. I'll just get through my intro first and then come over and we'll learn a bit more about you.
All right.
So we'll just go through a bit of history of what culture is. The modern use and definition of the word culture has a long history. It comes from the Latin word colere, meaning to foster, maintain, live in, habitat, to till, cultivate or promote growth. And as you may have realised, it has its beginnings in agriculture. The Roman orator Cicero was first to use the term culture in relation to humans. In 45 BC, he wrote about the need to cultivate the soul. And the word continued to be used in reference to the individual betterment until the 17th century. It was the German nationalist scholars of the 18th century who began to refer to commonalities of whole groups of people or national aspirations and ideals. They developed a more inclusive notion of culture to mean worldview. However, the universal concept of culture was developed by Adolf Bastian in 1860. He argued that all human societies share a set of elementary ideas and that different folk ideas were local modifications of the elementary ideas. And this was the beginning of our modern understanding of culture. In the 19th century, the English humanist scholars used the word culture in reference to an ideal individual refinement. Someone who was cultured was associated with urban activities such as art and classical music. Culture was therefore identified in civilised people. The humanist interest in folklore led to the identification of another culture belonging to rural and illiterate people. This in turn led to the concept of cultured and non-cultured people. This thinking was applied to contrast culture with the state of nature. They viewed Indigenous people as living in the state of nature. However, this gave rise to the concept of civilised and non-civilised people and the label of the noble savage. And this in turn gave rise to the concept of civilised and non-civilised nations. In the 20th century, culture became the domain of anthropologists and was grouped into two categories, non-material and material culture. So non-material culture includes values, beliefs, symbols and language that define a society or the intangible aspects of that society. The material culture is made up of the society's physical objects such as tools, technology, clothing, eating utensils and means of transport. And there was a philosopher named Edward Casey who wrote, "To be cultured, to have a culture, is to inhabit a place sufficiently intensely to cultivate it, to be responsible for it, to respond to it and attend to it caringly." So after that little rundown, I'd like to reintroduce David. David is the owner and operator of Identity Connections Indigenous Corporation in the Hunter region.
Mm-hmm.
And so David, thank you for being here this afternoon.
That's all right.
And I was hoping you could tell us a bit about yourself.
I'm a proud Wiradjuri man, but grew up on the mid-north coast. And I guess for me, my story was a story of pretty rough beginnings and growing up in a similar way to a lot of friends and a lot of families around me without fathers and disconnected from culture, disconnected from how things used to be, and also growing up in kind of a world where many kind of thought our path was already written. We had our path pretty well defined. Everyone kind of knew the stats, everyone kind of knew the trajectory. Whether it was being in a fatherless house and not having that guidance, and kind of going the path of a lockup. So many of our young ones that are dealing with trauma, end up, and then also dealing with the kind of that sense of wanting to feel that worth and battling between wanting to be accepted kind of within kind of whitefellow world without it feeling like you are therefore losing your connection to your family, your friends, and and that is most important. So yes, I guess for me it's been a lifelong journey of navigating all of this and a long clinical career and working with departments and organizations in education, in justice, in health, in mental health, in drug and alcohol, and ultimately found myself coming to a place to start Identity Connections last year. To For us, it was very simple. That my entire kind of process of working within these roles and working in very high level roles in community well-being and trying to help families and individuals heal, it was always culture being not truly integrated, as much as there was reconciliation action plans or artwork or using some lingo or kind of there's always this addition. There's always this thing that was still separate when the core of everything was still very much the same, especially in the mental health and well-being space. So that's why we wanted I wanted to just do things with culture, um, with that connection at the core of all of it, still using all that wisdom and knowledge along the way throughout my career, but going back to old ways of healing and connection and rebuilding strength within community. So that's where we are today with doing things that is authentic and connects back to old ways first. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow, that's amazing. Thanks for that.
it's okay.
Um, so I went through the evolution of the word culture just before in the intro, but it's the Western history of the word culture. So I was wondering if you could explain to us what culture means to you.
It's about connection for me. It's uh, it's about connection to land and each other, and that really beautiful core idea of the reality of things, that we are interconnected with land and with each other, and more importantly, just feeling that. So culture for me is more than the expressions of culture that we see, and whether it's through art, through dance, through language, through ceremony, it goes back to a deep connection with that way of being that kept our ancestors and kept our ancestors strong and kept our ancestors surviving through so much unmanageable things, whether it was ice ages and just the stuff that's happened over the last 50,000 years, we can't really comprehend to this day. And a beautiful message that I think is really important is there's kind of a little bit of a disconnect between some of these old ways of reconnecting in a real way to each other, to slowing down a bit, to using these old ways of being that really connect with people that are not Aboriginal, that don't have that background. And for me, it's wanting to just really help everybody connect back to that. And I think where we are today is, you have an opportunity here within Australia that you have elders and community members that still so deeply connected to that wisdom and that way of that hasn't been lost. Whereas I feel that with kind of the Western frameworks of things, that kind of idea has been lost thousands of years ago. And but before that, it was the same connection. It was the same connection to land, to each other, to kinship, to being able to survive and being able to just really value and respect each other and land. And it wasn't about being productive. It wasn't about greed. It wasn't about materialism. It wasn't about status or hierarchies or any of the weird stuff that is what is today. And helping kind of everybody just reconnect back to that shared understanding of that this isn't just elements of our culture that are just nice things to learn. These are things that you can reconnect back to that's going to help you, feel better and strength within yourself and with your family and with the way that you work and in your workplace for everybody. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, there is a I guess, a disconnect that people have these days. And yeah, looking for that somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think you're right too. Like all that knowledge that is being held there by the elders. Um, yeah, it does need to get out there and
Yeah. It's knowledge in a way that you wouldn't. It isn't knowledge as like accumulating knowledge. It isn't knowledge of I'm going to go and sit down with an elder and oh, I want to hear wisdom. It's in the whole experience. It's in everything that's kind of said in between the words. It's in just sitting in silence in the land with an elder and being guided by that elder with you're going to come into this space with me and just kind of leave everything else out for a bit. And that's where kind of that growth and learning can happen. So kind of changing your perspective a bit of this mainstream, like how we learn in education and kind of this thing of accumulation of knowledge through more workshops and more, is there value? Like, is there is there value in this? And just thinking about it a little bit more that we can learn in other ways that are just as powerful or even more so. Yeah.
And that's exactly what you do in your business.
Yeah. We come in and have with our workshops, we have everybody come and really feel what I'm talking about, and we do some practices, some old ways, and have everybody come and actually feel what I'm talking about, and let a nice balance of sharing story, sharing wisdom, but also feeling a lot of this and doing some of these practices that teach the lessons for me.
Yeah.
So the simple thing of helping everybody helping get some leaves for the smoking ceremony. And everything that kind of goes into that. So for us, it's called Indigenous, where I'm from, and about that deep respect and walking gently and not just going and just grabbing the first on a leaf that you see, but making sure that you're going and grabbing the right leaf, that that tree has enough leaves on it to survive, that you're checking that there's no bugs or spiders or anything that's happening underneath, and being just really kind of slowing down and knowing that you're going to feel out and find something that's given to you by land as opposed to going and just taking. And that whole process is so much that's just within that simple process of feeling your way through. Does this feel right or not? Is this the right leap to take? Because you're ultimately taking something that is important. And going through a process of what's being given by land. So, yeah.
Well, you just blow my mind. So that is such a great way to look at the world around us and how we interact.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. So we all kind of know what success looks like in the Western world, but what is success in Indigenous culture? Is there success?
It's mostly around freedom and joy and connection to loved ones and friends. So yeah, it's really it's also about your inner journey as well. I think even more so now that it's something that's not really seen too often, because kind of if we're putting the benchmark at really doing really well with higher education and working your way up in roles, kind of that whole perspective is almost very selfish in a way. It's very much okay, look, I'm just going to go to the top, and usually the way to the top is outperforming and just focusing on that trajectory. Whereas the success for us is about how is everybody doing, about if you are going to go ahead a little bit, that's part of your journey to collect wisdom and new knowledge that's going to be brought back to help bring everybody forward. So it isn't about this kind of just me. It isn't about anything to do with kind of my status or anything. But it's really hard. It's really hard because there's so much trauma and disconnection that's happened. That impacts you as a young person and impacts your whole life of kind of that feeling of being valued in workplaces or being valued in kind of these different roles and being promoted or kind of getting praise from everyone about finishing degrees and different tasks that it almost it's always a battle. It's always a battle of all this. Like this feels out of like
Mm.
I don't really the stuff that I'm not feeling too good about myself and stuff that I'm haven't felt too good about my childhood and this stuff. It feels nice, but it ultimately disconnects from kind of the real value. And
Mm.
a lot of our work is trying to have a balance of both, so that with everyone we're going after, that real sense of strong identity and feeling a positive sense of who they are in a way that isn't to do with anything that anybody else is saying. No external kind of things coming in that you know you.
Yeah.
And yeah, having for us it helps so many young ones kind of and anybody kind of looking at anything that feels overwhelming or feeling disconnected. It's helpful to kind of start with a lot of those kind of core
Yeah.
issues first. And yeah, because it's interesting with success, like we like to dissect things at the moment. And I can see, like with any part of this, I can see that, you're kind of late, coming a bit late now and then or something, and going to performance manage you into being successful employee. And do you need more supervision? Do you need this? Okay, I see that this might be happening. Okay, let's tackle that one individual problem. And it's always missing, what's really happening with how that person is feeling within themselves and looking about kind of the same kind of way that we're trying to improve like workplace culture in the workplace is failing in the same way that we're trying to behavior manage and stuff kids and look at performance within schools, that it's always looking at just the outputs and stuff. And because even those that are performing really well in school or workplace, how much how much stress are they constantly under all the time to maintain that? Because that's where their value and their
Yeah.
esteem and their worth is coming from. That, but they're sacrificing time with friends and families because they're working or studying. They have higher anxiety issues than everybody else. So kind of this way of looking at it, at just the output, without really making sure that the intent that within that person is going well.
Mm.
Um,
Yep.
that's where we lead to burnout with amazing employees. That's where we lead to young ones that aren't doing well that we didn't know about because we're only looking at their functioning and performance, not
Yeah.
how they're actually doing. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think we briefly spoke about that uh, a little while ago about the issues that some of these students, really well performing students, have had over the pandemic time,
yeah, yeah,
um, where they got their self worth from those grades,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
and all of a sudden they couldn't find that they could do that in the new structure.
Yeah, it felt like we had some yarning circles this year with some high school students, and that pandemic period and falling so behind with school, and felt like almost their entire next few years were completely destroyed.
Yeah,
And looking at if they're going to be behind with the universities they want to get into and everything, so put them
their
into
future.
yeah,
Like, yeah,
yeah, which is which is if we really look at it, it's a dangerous position.
yeah,
We know young ones are not doing well with anxiety and with
yeah,
depression and with self-harm and with navigating all of this. And for us, we need to be really taking a step back and looking at it as a whole, like as a whole community. What are we doing, and how are we looking after each other? Within the workplace, but also within the school, and just with each other. And yeah, it's it'd be nice to kind of see kind of more places take that step back and
yeah,
um, start really building strength and resilience and in a real way that
yep.
that's meaningful. So
That's interesting. Like building real resilience.
which comes from not just these are the skills and these are the things that it's more and more and more on top of someone that's already trying to hold so much. It's
Mm.
being able to have a workplace where if something's happening at home where you're dealing with grief and loss, where you're dealing with stuff within yourself, or everyone's got different histories and different journeys, that is okay here. That you don't need to kind of come here and put on a mask and hide this, because I know that, if you're kind of holding it and have that mask to protect your family at home, and then you're kind of coming to work and you kind of unable, you have nowhere to just kind of sit and be just open, and everyone just being honest with, like, none of us all have it together all the time, that we all are human, that we all are dealing with our own pains, and there's things that are happening to disrupt that, and that it's all okay, that we aren't just, machines. We're not just machines that just come and produce and stuff, but we're people, and there's strength in kind of being vulnerable and connecting and really, knowing and trusting who you're working with and supporting each other through those times when we need support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And I find that, in my training role as well, that in front of the training group, when you show your vulnerabilities, it really does relax people.
Yeah.
And so how are the kids reacting to this kind of stuff when you're doing the circles with them?
It's been, I think it's still at the very early stages. So just feeling, pretty confronting for some, because it is such a new space to be, vulnerable and open amongst their friends. But I've seen a lot of progress happening with staff, and kind of in that space with a lot of our staff circles and professional development and cultural education, where uh, we're kind of holding this space, and I'm holding this space within circles, so that you're mending a lot of that, and hearing a lot of beautiful feedback from staff that are going back in and really, looking at things from a new perspective and supporting each other, and just feeling a lot lighter, back in the workplace. So
Mm.
that's the goal with all of this, is just to help people just, feel a little bit lighter, at the end of it. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And so when you were telling us about your upbringing, were you connected to your culture when you were young, or was that something that you found as you kind of got older?
So I was connected with culture through, like, it wasn't through my father, it wasn't through the normal way that it's meant to happen. And so it was from, it's from other mentors, that were local mentors, and one of the biggest, mentors supported me back when I was in high school. Arnie Radley, she's a beautiful woman.
Yep.
And yeah, and then from that, it was just being able to kind of, when I moved from Port Macquarie to Costa Harbour, was then also just connecting with elders and beautiful elders that continued, you know, sharing culture, sharing circle work, sharing old ways of working and healing. And yeah, for me, I'm so thankful that I was able to kind of stay grounded in that with the mentors and elders along the way, that along with kind of all of my clinical work and all of the work in that professional space. So yeah, it's something that I've been, thankful for, that it kind of was there the whole time I'm staying through. And yeah, it feels amazing being able to just really step back into so much of this side, with my day to day. And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that is really nice. Um, so sorry, I'll just go back a bit. How do you incorporate culture into your business goals? Or how does it relate to your business goals?
It's been, for me, it's been meeting everybody where they are. So this has kind of been the challenge of being very gentle, I guess, along the way with how ingrained everything is at the moment. Because for me, it's about trying to build a deepened understanding with everybody, whether I'm meeting with the CEO or directors of education or really high level staff, um, who their entire career has been really molded by working and interacting and talking and being kind of in this kind of space, and it's it's been a process of kind of trying to take a lot of my old ways and take this and then kind of adjust the language a bit, kind of use a lot of familiar language and kind of use a lot of those terms that uh, sound more familiar, and we can not call it a circle, we can call it, professional development, and we're going to be coming and talking about, cultural considerations into the mental health and wellbeing space, and how to engage with community. But ultimately, what's happening is, you know, I just want time to sit with everybody, because that then creates a space that I can kind of feel out where everybody is, and go on that little journey of being able to have a little bit of this land without it feeling like uh, any hitting any walls or any defense or anything like that. So
Do people
yeah,
come in defensive?
not defensive. It's just because even when you mention cultural education, like a lot of people have been through cultural education
Yeah.
so far, and for me, kind of when it comes to our cultural education, it's we talk about trauma and healing, we talk about old ways and going through these processes, but we talk about the generational strength, we talk about a lot of the ways that you can connect to that's going to support, your journey of being successful and having a balance with family, being able to give you, ways of being, perspectives and tools and practices that support you. With that kind of the and I'm so happy that the truth telling and the cultural education that's out there that's very historical. It talks about the historical, um, the horrible things that have happened over the last 200 years. But for us, we're wanting to just keep moving on from that discussion
Yep.
to feeling kind of this side of it all, just feeling to truly feeling this side of it all, and not just left in a place where you kind of feel any guilt, or feeling in a place of guilt, or lowering expectations for community, or anything, or lowering expectations for staff that you might have in an identified role. The opposite, where you walk away from this training and with a new respect and understanding that that identified worker that you have is not just an identified worker that, is someone that is going to be more comfortable for Aboriginal clients to come in and see, someone that holds a connection to land and has wisdom that can support your entire business, from your high level strategic work that you're doing to your HR and self care and well being of staff, that uh, walk away with higher expectations and walking away from that circle with a feeling of shared understanding that's positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, as much as, just having a balance of both, I think, is important. But there's so many that are doing kind of early part of cultural education, and yeah, our role is going deeper into identity, deeper into this, and going to that kind of next stage of having it really integrated within yourself, so that it's integrated into your organization and policies and procedures and the way that you, work with our people. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, that's fantastic too. Um, did your connection to culture affect how you developed your business ideas?
definitely. It was making sure that these old ways and these gaps that I was seeing in mental health and well-being and community development, and the way that organizations and departments were, trying to come up with ideas to close gaps and to just try to address the needs that were happening locally. I was really wanting to ensure that, the old ways were presented first, and just trust that it was yeah, it was challenging. Like I'll talk how I am now in documents, and just
Yeah.
talk how I talk in documents and on our website, and then kind of reread it, and no, it's not professional enough. It hasn't got, any of the buzzwords in there that everyone's kind of used to hearing at the moment. And it's like, no, like just wanting to stay as honest
Yep.
and true to, kind of just how I explain it and kind of my experience and kind of my vision for how this moves forward and really coming from coming from a place of hope and and trusting others. I think was a big thing. Trusting that others will understand and connect to this. And
Yeah.
even though it might be several circles and it might be over years and it might be a slow process of unlearning, some of the things that have happened, that that this can happen. And we just need to just trust that people can be open and sit down and self-reflect and really kind of understand where we're coming from and come and sit and be open in the circle and yeah
Yeah.
and just keep learning together.
And what's the response been to that?
Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah.
It's been really good.
Fantastic.
So yeah, it's been amazing so far, and we just want to keep building this and having more circles on the ground. And for me, it's about finding more mentors and
Yeah.
more amazing individuals that have been on a lot of that journey, journey of healing, that journey of navigating their way through both worlds, to be able to come and keep holding that space for more people. So we also want to create access for us. We wanted us to do the challenging part. We wanted us to do the challenging part of dealing kind of with this strange part where we're working with grants and service agreements and like all of that side of it, so that when we have mentors and elders that come through that just want to share story or artwork or just sit, that they're able to just come and just do that.
Yeah.
Just come and just do that and feel valued and feel comfortable and okay to just come and do that part and know that they're walking into somewhere that is welcoming and safe and not having to worry about let us worry about all the stuff that is the stuff that the funding loves. So let us sort out evaluation and let us sort out the reports at the end and do all this side of it, so that you can just come and step back into that role that is your role.
Yep.
Back into that role of being the knowledge keeper, about being the healer, about coming and just sitting and connecting with young ones and connecting with families that desperately need to have that connection. And so it's been
so nice to hear, like, you live your values, and you really incorporate them into your business, and it seems like everything that you do, and it's just refreshing, I think, to hear that, especially in the business world. Where like you can say anything in marketing. So it's really, really nice to hear. And I just have one more question for you. So I was talking to Brooke the other day, who is our experience manager at the business centre, normally hosts these business fusion events. And we're talking about how a lot of European Australians from European descent don't feel they have a culture of their own. I guess apart from maybe a larrikin culture or whatever that is in white Australia. And it got us talking about what lessons can be learnt from people with businesses that are driven by culture. And so what kind of advice or could you give, or what should people be aware of when it comes to integrating culture into their daily business operations? Sorry, that's a long-winded question.
Yeah. I think there's a few kind of things that popped in. Like, first of all, it kind of goes back a little bit to kind of the early part that we're talking about with, a lot more people slowing down and a lot more people that are trying to find, ways to heal childhood trauma and feel and deal with their own depression and anxiety and find meaningful you know, ways of working and find meaningful roles and more focused on roles that that uplift them. And it kind of goes back to that. I don't think there's a bigger disconnect between when we really get down to it in terms of core values and really wanting to value connection to each other and something that brings purpose and meaning is something that is connecting to that just has you feel light and feels connected to land, but also it's also there's joy and joking and there's those aspects that I think is something that need to stay within the workplace. I think it's something that's probably the biggest lesson I've had throughout my entire life was having elders that help me, just elders and colleagues and other amazing people in the community that helped me not take it so serious when I was taking it too serious.
Yeah.
And being able to still joke around and still just be present and be okay and have a good time. So yeah, it's something that's probably the main thing that has been that just makes it not feel very nice to be in many roles these days of how serious it feels all the time.
Yep.
And being able to just have it feel a little bit different and feel be able to joke around and be able to be okay again, because like it's never one or the other. I think when I think about kind of the ideal workplace is one that is able to be a place that everyone is vulnerable and supporting each other through those times within yourself and be able to hold that space while also having a place that doesn't feel just repetitive and autonomous and feel serious and feel that you're just about your productivity or being efficient and also just being able to joke and have fun and be able to be open again. So it's just about feeling. It's just about feeling all the different things again, openly again, instead of it feeling so restricted and restrained. And because it's something that is really important with my work is that's the very first step with a lot of our circle work, and it's this hesitation. I feel it here in the Hunter more than I felt it anywhere.
Oh,
really? Just with working with community or just even working with myself is this hesitation to cause offense, this hesitation to say the wrong thing, this hesitation to upset me. And from the other side of that hesitation, I can't connect with you. I can't connect with you at all if that hesitation is there. If it feels like you don't trust yourself to just
to be open,
just have a yarn and be with me. So this kind of process of these circles of getting people back to a place of within yourself. Within yourself that you are caring and kind and compassionate and know this. And even if you do say the wrong thing, if you're able to just connect with me, then I know that like you just said the wrong thing, but I know you as a person is compassionate and kind and be able to just have these interactions and build a relationship in a meaningful way. And we can't do that if it's so hesitant and that connection is just continuing to divide us. So so a lot of this circle work that we do is about getting rid of that hesitation and going back to trusting yourself again and trusting where you're coming from with all of this. So
wow, that is truly amazing. And we'll finish up there. But thank you so much for coming, because I can see how people are relaxed when they come into your circles.
Yeah.
An
You should come
extremely
along.
relaxing person to be around.
You should come along and
Yeah, I can't wait to get to one.
yeah.
And it's just been a real pleasure to have you here and to tell us this. I think, well, I've learned a whole heap. I'm sure everyone else will as well. And hopefully people check out Identity Connections Indigenous Corporation and see what you do.
Yeah, come and sit with us and just keep going on this journey together.
Yeah. Thanks so much, David.
Thank you.
And thanks for everyone for joining us for Business Fusion.